Hey, is that
Hi,
you, Crystal?
that's me. How are you?
Hi. I
Good.
love it when technology works because like 3 minutes ago, none of this was working. I had to reboot.
Great. Well, very good. Thank you. This is exciting. I love the background. We were just talking about screencasts. So I
Yeah, this
said
is my
white.
office.
Great. Great. Okay. Well, we have four students with us tonight. This is a smaller class. I have majority of my students are on fully online, but this is my hybrid at the main campus. So I know you only have a short amount of time, and I've told them all about you and your wonderful work with your husband, and so if you don't mind, we'll skip introductions. I told you about them. Just get right to business. Is that okay?
Sure. So am I up on a big screen or how,
You
how are we
are.
doing this?
Um,
Yay.
so let's see. So there's your whiteboard. Um, there's a whiteboard there. Trust me. Okay, there's the whiteboard, and it's an
Cool.
interactive whiteboard. And then I have. Is it okay if I record the screen? The
Yeah, I'm
screencast it.
actually doing this as a Google on air and it should be recording.
Okay. Okay.
So,
Great.
but if you want to record also just as a backup.
That's great. Okay. So you are in a whiteboard. They all have computers in front of them, and they're logged into my Hangout, but you're not in there. But it's still there too. So they all see you on their own devices.
Okay. Do
Okay.
you mind flipping around for just a minute so I can see who they are just for a minute?
Yes. Can you all wave? Let's see. Can I maneuver the camera? Right. Okay. Everybody wave. All right. And then there's Bailey there. Okay.
Hi.
Okay.
Now there should be a link on the left-hand side. I was playing with something and there's a showcase. Like on the left-hand side, if you hover over, this little toolbar should come up. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay, and so there's something that looks like tags, I guess, and it says showcase.
Is that part of my app suite, or is this
Yeah, I think so. Well, it's part of the Hangout. So I put some links on there, but
on
it's a new
show?
thing, I think, so I'm just trying it out.
Okay, let's, oh dear, it's not coming up on mine in this Hangout that I'm in with you. Now, in my other, so on the Hangout on Air, those aren't coming up.
Okay. Well, I'll make
Okay.
sure to put all the links because there's a page for this Hangout. And so I'll put all those links
Okay.
and resources on that page directly.
Okay, great.
And that way you guys
They've
can come
seen your
back to this.
website too. Okay, they've seen your website.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So where should we start?
Where should we start? So if you could give us a little bit, first I did a high-level summary of you and all the great things you've done, but if you can kind of, from your perspective, tell us your overall mission and vision of tabletop inventing, and then what spurred you to do this work.
Okay. So we have a pretty high level mission, and I've been teaching technology for about 20 years. I've been teaching at the community college level and at graduate school level. I've taught kindergarten, so I've pretty much taught the whole gamut from kindergarten up to graduate students. And for me, the high level picture isn't about the technology itself. It's about getting people to think in more interesting ways, more creative ways. And the technology is just a really good tool to engage them. My husband, we call him the mad scientist. He's got a PhD in physics. I always tell people he's more like MacGyver than Einstein. So if you don't know who MacGyver is, go look that up on YouTube. He does things like diffuses bombs with toothpaste and toothpicks and weird stuff. Anyhow, so we together developed this company because he saw a real need. He was working as a researcher for the Navy and also for a major medical university here in Southern California. And he saw a real need to get people in who could think in creative, interesting ways that wasn't just checking off the box. Now, I went through a Pepperdine program, and so Crystal's very familiar with my thinking on that, I think, is that technology is just a good way to hook students and to get them involved and engaged and to get them to think and create and problem solve and troubleshoot and all these good skills. And I've been teaching like this, for 20 years. it took him a little bit of time to sort of come along with the program. So we started off by just doing this part-time. And we did a summer camp, an inventor camp, where we had 3D printers and we had Arduino robotics, and it was kind of like, so Crystal, do you guys call it cadre camp that you went to, or tech camp?
It was tech
probably
camp.
very, okay, so it was very similar to that. We gave the students a challenge, a very broad thing. They had to create a security system using the technology, and in 4 days. And Steve didn't think they were going to do it, but I had a really good sense that they'd pull this off just based on my experience. And so it was really fun to watch them bring in stuff from home, use the stuff that we had, collaborate with each other, share knowledge, and then figure out how to solve the problem. So this is our 3rd year, and we really have a big mission. We want to help kids become world changers. We actually just launched a very high-level program. It's a very intensive mentoring program for teens where we're only taking 9 to 12 students, and we're going to work with them all year long to create very cool projects. So that's kind of our big picture. That's what we're doing.
Excellent, excellent. Can you give us an example of maybe what one or two of those really cool projects are?
Well, there's a video, and I'm going to make a note to share it.
Okay.
So there's a kid in Southeastern Colorado named Eason LaChapelle. And I don't know if you've seen or heard about him, but he was in just this small town in Colorado, and he saw a guy, I believe the way the story went is he was like 14 years old, and he saw a guy without an arm. Like, I think that was like the first time he'd ever been exposed to somebody who had an amputated arm. And he was interested in like Lego robotics, because he was a 14-year-old kind of geeky kid. Well, now he's about 20 or 21, and a year ago, he launched out into open source this robotic arm that he created that's basically mind controlled. So they wear a headset, and I don't exactly know how it works, but basically just using tools at his school, and he had some basic robotic stuff, he kept prototyping and testing it out. And there's this phenomenal video where he brings this guy in from his town and fits him with this arm. And a prosthetic can cost $60,000, especially a robotic prosthetic. Can be very expensive, and most people can't afford that. And so he was in a position, what he created was so amazing that he was in a position to actually make tons of money off of this. He could totally sell this, and he did something different. At Consumer Electronics Show last year, not this past year, but the year before, he released all of his plans open source.
Wow.
So he just said, here's the code, here's the files, here it is, go do it. And it cost him about $500 to make an arm.
Wow.
And he was a teenager when he did this. You know, and he was a teenager in a small town that didn't have a lot of resources. He wasn't a teenager in, you know, Silicon Valley, Bay Area, or New York City. He was a teenager in some little rural town that had curiosity, and he had some mentoring that said, you know, why don't you go try this out? Let's see what it will do. And then he did it. So we're calling it the Resonance Innovation Fellowship. And our goal is to really take these kids to way beyond where they think they can go. We're pretty excited about that.
That is awesome. Game changing for sure. Can you tell us what does that look like? Do they meet online? Are they going to be meeting with you in person? Is it hybrid? What are the actual?
We're doing both. It's hybrid. So we're gonna start off with them, and we're just finalizing the cadre. So we've had a few meetings online with a couple of the kids. We're gonna do web conferences every week. We'll have about an hour and a half long report out collaboration type web conference. And we're gonna actually use an action learning and design thinking framework to carry the kids through all of this, to, you know, help them develop all of that. So we're going to meet every week with them. They're going to be working with other kids in the cadre. So they'll probably be in teams of 2 to 3 working on a project. And then probably 2 to 3 times a year we'll have a face-to-face, because there's a ton of value. Hybrid's great, And I've been teaching online for probably 15 years. Online is great, but you really can't beat looking in somebody's eyes face to face and working on stuff. I mean, it's just, you can't beat that. So we're going to work hard on getting these kids together. And we've got a handful of kids from a very rural town in western North Carolina, the Appalachian Mountains. Their town's got about 1,500 people, and they have a super Walmart. So I was very impressed by that. And not too many stoplights, but they have a super Walmart. And anyhow, but it's a very rural, I mean, it's Appalachia, so there's not a lot of money there. But we have some businessmen that are willing to come in and support these kids because we've had an inventor camp there for 2 years in a row, going back for our 3rd year. And they came in and saw what the kids were doing last year and got very excited and said, what can we do to to help this? And so he said, well, we have some ideas. Here's what you can do. And then we have a couple of kids up in Mammoth Lakes, California, which is a weird town because there's people who live in Mammoth Lakes that for spring break, they go to Cancun in France, and, it's Mammoth where the big ski resort is. Other kids in town that are at the exact opposite end of that spectrum. And honestly, those are the kids we like working with. The other kids are great, but the kids that don't have everything handed to them, they seem to be the ones that come up with phenomenal ideas.
Mm-hmm. Agree.
And we have some in Southern California. So it's very diverse. We have a lot of kids from different areas.
Okay. So these are pre-service teachers and I kind of shared a little bit about the socioeconomics demographics of Oklahoma, Southeastern Oklahoma in general. And you have some folks that have a lot of resources in all regards, and then you have many folks, I would say probably the more majority, that have minimal resources. So thinking that these pre-service teachers are going to be working with this vast array of students, like you just mentioned, that may or may not have much of an educational background or could be at any level of literacy, any level of resource, what advice would you give them?
I mean, really, if you focus on inspiring their creativity, I mean, that's really where we focus. If you focus on inspiring their creativity and their curiosity, I mean, the best question I ever hear is, I wonder. Like, I wonder if, or I wonder what, I wonder how. That's really what we're going for. And it's really fun to use the high-level tools. I mean, the 3D printer is a huge draw. Like, everybody wants to try 3D printing because it's just really cool. Yeah. But honestly, when I do workshops with teachers and stuff, I start off with index cards and markers. And awesome. I should have brought one over here. We have this thing we call a blinky light kit that's basically a coin cell battery and a couple of LEDs and some pipe cleaners. And so one of the articles that I put on the showcase thing, but I'll list it on the page for this, we did this series of articles called Creating an Educational Makerspace. And the first article talks all about this philosophy of pedagogically, why is this a good thing? Because there really is some very good, solid educational theory behind letting kids have hands-on experiences with their learning. The second article talked about, it was going to be one article, and then they asked us to expand it out. So it ended up being 3 articles. So the second article talks about the tools. And it talks about 3D printers but all kinds of stuff. The third article you guys might be really interested in. I mean, hopefully you're interested in all of them. But the third article is actually a case study for a school in New Jersey where the librarian walked in, as she got hired, and the library was the place nobody ever showed up. Because, like, why would you go to the school library? And so she, I can't remember, she got a bee in her bonnet somehow and decided that she wanted to do a makerspace, but she didn't have any money. And so she started with a take-apart station, because every school, everywhere, you can find old stuff that doesn't work. And so she just had some old computers and old, I don't know, tape players and just old stuff that they were going to toss out. And she just made a take-apart station. And then she had another station, I think it had Legos, just simple stuff. The idea was to get the kids coming in and engaged and just trying things out. And so there really is a huge range. I mean, you can go all the way from, a table of Legos and old computers which is awesome. The first thing actually Steve's having these kids do in the mentoring project is go find something to take apart. Just because he wants them to say, oh, I wonder what's inside of that. And I wonder what that thing does. And I wonder how it works. And we did ask them to make sure they asked their parents before they took apart like the lawnmower or something. So they didn't just go in and disassemble the VCR. But anyhow, so you can start all the way down at that end, and then all the way up at the other end, there's $50,000 laser cutters and things. So there really is a broad range of tools that you can bring in, but it doesn't have to be complicated. She let the students actually lead where they went from there.
Okay. Great. That is really great advice. Do you have time for a few questions from our students?
Oh, definitely. I'd prefer questions.
Okay, great. Okay. All right. Thoughts? I know you all are probably a little overwhelmed maybe with some of this. Any questions that you have thinking about Maker Ed, taking apart things?
I actually have a little activity that they could do while they're thinking.
So great.
With something that they probably hopefully have. Do you guys all have like a piece of paper and something to write with?
We can for sure.
Why don't you all get a piece of paper? I know, I love it in my college class because I teach computers, and every once in a while I'll say, can you guys pull out a piece of paper and a pen? And they're like, what? We're in a computer class.
I'm the worst with that. Okay. Who needs paper and pen? Okay, I'll be right back. All right. Yeah, we can edit that little portion there. Okay.
Okay. So do you have one too?
I do.
Okay, good. So one of the things that I've been teaching teachers for a long time, and one of the things that I notice is that, not with all teachers, but with some teachers, they get out of the habit of learning. I mean, learning is what we do. That's our business, right? If you had to say, what is our business? It's helping people learn. But they get out of the habit of learning themselves and remembering what it feels like to create and to innovate. That first time, if you ever learned how to ride a bike and the first time you did it by yourself, you're just like, yeah, it was great. But as you move on, you sort of lose that. So this is just a little exercise to kind of illustrate what innovation might feel like. So in whatever your dominant hand is on that paper, sign your name. Just write your name. And this is not complicated.
Another bad one. All right.
Okay. Everybody got it? Now we need to take it and put it in your other hand and write your name.
So the pen in the other hand. Okay.
Yeah, put your pen or pencil in the other hand.
Second grader.
Right,
okay.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, can I see? Aha. So let me ask you guys, what's the second one look like?
Scribbly.
Scribbly.
Like a 2-year-old.
Kind of like when you write your name with your finger on those little pad things, right? That never looks good no matter what you do. So would everybody agree it kind of looks messy?
Yes.
Yeah. So how did it feel to write that? You don't even think about writing it with your dominant hand, right? But how does it feel to write that?
How did it feel, you all? You had to think about it. Yeah.
I hate it when that happens.
That really weird. Yeah. Anything else? I can see maybe a little bit of frustration. Yeah.
Because it should be easy, right? It's just your name. You've written your name a million times. but not that way.
Right.
That's a really good, simple illustration on what innovation feels like sometimes. It's messy. You don't want to show it to anybody necessarily. Like you don't want to just, you're not going to post that on your Facebook page. But it takes a little practice. I mean, probably if you practiced after a while, you'd probably get that figured out, or you'd find some way to do it. So one of the things that we really focus on, Steve likes to focus on the kids and the teenagers, and I really like to work with the adults. So, you know, with the college students and with teachers and people like that. But it's kind of the same problem. I mean, the thing that I've noticed, because we've worked with kids all the way down to 3rd and 4th grade. And then, like I said, all the way up to college students and teachers. The farther up the continuum you go, the less willing they are to take risks. And that's kind of a generalization, but I think overall it's pretty accurate. So we taught an inventor camp in Atlanta, Georgia, 2 years ago. And it was a class full of 4th, 5th, and a few 6th graders. And one random 9th grader, like I have no idea how he ended up in the class, but basically 4th, 5th, and 6th graders. And they blew up so many things. Like they blew out sensors, they blew up LEDs, stuff was smoking. But they were just trying things out. Like they weren't afraid to say, well, if I put these things together, what will happen? When we work with teachers frequently, we had this happen last year at the Model Schools Conference. We do this, they asked us to come in and teach one of our inventor camps at the conference, which is a bizarre thing. So I don't know if you guys have done any student teaching or anything. I'm sure you've all been in classrooms, obviously. So imagine teaching, you know, a bunch of kids, and every 45 minutes to an hour and a half when the conference sessions let out, at least people flood your classroom space, like hundreds of people, to talk to all the kids while you're trying to get this thing accomplished, you know, help them get their projects done. And the kids pulled it off, you know, phenomenally. But we did this workshop with teachers one night, and we had about a dozen teachers. And one of the videos I'm going to post for you is this thing called Inventor Expo. And so we did this expo with teachers. And when we do it, we just did it a couple of weeks ago at Burbank Unified. We had 240 8th graders. Let's see, we had 80 kids per session for an hour and a half each session. And they went to 3 stations. They went to 3D printing, 3D design, and robotics. And so we had 80 8th graders. And there was 4 of us, maybe 5 of us, that managed the whole thing. Because the kids, we have it set up so it's very self-directed. There's each station, they sit down, they can 3D print, they can, you know, and then they ask us if they need a little help. Totally self-directed, right? Just imagine 80. It freaked me out. We thought there was going to be 60, and we got there and they said, oh, by the way, there's 20 more kids in each session. So we did this thing with the teachers. Same activity, same handouts, same setup. They were so, what's the word I want to look for? They were great, but they needed a lot more help in the 8th grade. It took more work to get 12 teachers through this workshop than it took to get 80 8th graders through the same activities, because the teachers didn't want to just try it. They were nervous about looking dumb or whatever. I understand that, but it was, I brought that back as a reflection at the end of the workshop with the teachers. And I said, and I told them, you know, we do this with middle school kids and they fly right through it. So
they may blow a lot more stuff out.
Yeah.
Good. Great. Any other questions? How many of you have seen this sort of maker ed, tinkering, hands-on kind of innovative learning in the classrooms you've been in or you've participated in your time thus far? To robotics class sophomore year. What high school? New Mexico. That makes sense. They have a lot of cool stuff going on in Mexico. Find it, yeah. Talk more about that. And what did you use for your robotics class? Lego, yeah. Anybody else?
Yeah, I used to use Lego, and I loved Lego, but Lego's really expensive. Like a set of Lego robotics is a couple $100. So we use Arduino because for, I don't know, $50, you can get a ton of stuff. I mean, just the price point's way cheaper. And then if the kids like it, they can go home and, I don't know, get a paper route or have a bake sale or something. At some, they could earn the money. $50 is reasonable. $250 is a pretty big chunk.
She went to a very, very nice high school. Sounds like it was. And well, but a lot of those public schools in New Mexico are often funded by the energy companies.
Oh.
What?
So they have money.
Intel funded hers. Yeah. Yes. Yes. They have. Intel's done a lot of work with the native tribes down there. Pasco had this cool Pasco Yaqui tribe in Arizona. They had a full after school maker tinkering programming type session that Intel fully funded as well. So.
Wow.
Anybody? Yeah. Intel. Yeah. Which they may be an option for us too. We'll see. Anybody?
I'd love it if Intel gave us a call.
Yeah. We'll see what we can do. I don't know what that was years ago. I actually attended one of their conferences and met with the guy around there. You can look at. I'll chat it to you. It is the Pasco Yaqui tribe, and they do have some publications. Pasco Yaqui. I think I'm spelling this correctly. And they're in Arizona, and they have this full a maker coding after-school session for tribal kids of the Pasco Yaqui tribe, and the Intel Corporation paid for it all. So,
wow.
Anybody here in Oklahoma has had any of these types of things? Okay. Do you think that there's value in this? What value do you think you could possibly see? Think about your experience in current K-12 school settings here. You want to share your experience? So she's more artistically inclined, and she did not think that the robotics, because it is so mechanical and more kind of sciencey based, that there would be an art component, but she certainly experienced the creative side, the artistic side as well, which we could have that whole conversation on STEAM, and that would be another whole other conversation about STEAM and using arts in that.
And one of our daughters actually is very artsy. She literally carries around a sketchbook everywhere. She's 17 now, and she's always off in her head, and she draws things. And I mean, she's the artist of the family for sure. And she's actually pretty good. Like, I can draw stick people. That's my art. And so a year or two ago, I think it was last year, we needed her to fill in a group because we needed just one extra person. And so we asked her to jump in the group. And our kids come along and they help with all of this stuff, so that, you know, that wasn't too unusual. But what happened was, it was a 3-people group. There was a teacher in the group who just didn't come back to the class. It was a 4-day class. And he, for whatever reason, he didn't come back. We actually have never had that happen before or since, when somebody just stops coming. So hopefully nothing evil happened to him. But anyhow, what it did is it put her, the resident artist, in the position of having to program, which she had not really, she sort of dinked around a little bit. But she, in about 2 days, just laid into it and took control of the programming. And now she's the go-to programmer when we do Arduino stuff. She never thought she could do it because, you know, that's the geeky people did that. And she does it differently. She definitely has a different way of looking at things. But, you know, I always tell people, don't rule it out. And there's so much art and technology for everybody. And what grade levels are they looking at teaching?
What grade levels are you on? It's 4th, 5th? Like junior high, 7th, 8th, okay. Elementary or middle school special ed, awesome. Okay. Yeah. So kind of
So the
Okay.
whole range. Let me give you a couple of examples to give you some ideas. And so I teach community college, but I've done lots and lots of outreach with K-12 kids through what I do at the college level and now what we're doing at Tabletop Inventing. And I always, for whatever reason in my college classes, I get the students, especially like the homeschool students, that their parents don't know what to do with them at home, but I teach a computer class, and so they frequently will end up in my class. And it seems like this type of technology, this type of learning, especially for the students who are marginalized, especially for the ones that don't do well in other classes, teaching like this hooks them. It gives them an excuse. I had a student once that was the most brilliant engineering student I've ever had. Um, he had this sense of style and design with the Lego robotics, real, but he couldn't get past English 101 and algebra. Was that? No, it was trigonometry. I mean, he just, so his career as an engineer was at a halt because he just couldn't get past those. So he started taking my classes, and I was teaching a full semester robotics, and he got totally hooked. And I had a guest speaker come up who had programmed a robot. We lived out by a Navy base up in Ridgecrest, China Lake Navy base, where they do research. So I got one of their guys to come up, and he brought a robot that he was working on. It looked like kind of a Roomba with legs, and so kind of like a spider bot thing. And he opened up his laptop. He's sitting there in the lab, and my students are watching him, and he's programming. And this student of mine looks at the screen, and he says, "Is that trigonometry? Like, that's trig." And all of a sudden, trig jumped out of 50 problems at the end of the chapter, and it jumped into something like, this is why you need to know trig. And so it lets you make some very real world connections in there. There's another teacher that we work with, Clark Barnett, and he is in Thousand Oaks. And so a couple of years ago, when we were first getting started at the end of our summer camp season, we had an extra 3D printer sitting around. And I've known Clark for a long time. He does really cool stuff with iPads. He teaches 4th grade. So he does really cool stuff with iPads and lots of technology things. So I asked him, do you want a 3D printer for the year just to see it, just to see what it will do? And so he said yes, and he had never used one. He had no idea what he was going to do. So he played with it at home, which I think is a key component. He played with it to kind of check it out. But then he let his students go with it. And they just did all these interesting, cool projects. But one of the fun things that he did was they had in California, I don't know if this is a statewide, nationwide thing, but in California in 4th grade, you learn about bugs. That's like there's a bug insect unit. So he had the kids learn all about bugs. And then they had this app on their iPad. I think it's called 123 Creature, and it's a free app. And the kids got to design their own insect, but the insect had to have the right body parts, the right number of legs, like all the insect things that they had learned about. So they designed it, and this program lets it, when you save it to the program, it lets you download a 3D printable file. So the kids got to print their bugs. And then they had to write up a whole ecosystem for the bug. Like, what did it eat? Who were its predators? Where did it live? All the, so you're jumping totally across different curriculum areas. And I'll post up a video. There's this video that this one kid did that was unbelievable. He did, and it wasn't the assignment. He took what he was learning. He was so excited about it. And really, they printed these bugs were like this big. I have one. I should have brought it in here. We have one. What he did is he took the bugs, and if you've ever seen an entomology class where you have to do an insect display and all the bugs are in a box with a pin in them, he took all the kids' bugs, put them in these display boxes. They were all labeled whatever the kid named the bug, because they all had to have some Latinish sort of name. So, so they're learning about word roots and all these good things. So the name of the bug, discovered by Dr. whatever the kid's name was. And then he posted him on the wall outside of his room so everybody in the school could see him. So now all of a sudden you've got these 4th graders who are now Dr. Jones and Dr. Smith, and I've invented a bug. And yeah, this one kid took this and he got a couple other bugs. He made a stop action video. I'm watching this video going, this is a 10-year-old that made this video, and it wasn't the class assignment. He got so excited about what he was learning that he had these 2 bugs walking through the classroom, and one's chasing the other, and they're talking about what the kids drop on the floor that they like to eat. And at the very end, he has Ellen DeGeneres from the Ellen Show interview the bug. So he like brings his other video into his video. And I'm thinking that is like the holy grail of teaching. Like you
Yes.
teach them something and then they take it and they just run with it and they just keep going with it. And, you know, as a teacher, if you can inspire your students in whatever way possible to do that, then you've done your job. Like it doesn't matter what checkboxes you need to check off. The real goal is to inspire your students to be curious and self-directed learners. At least that's my opinion. There might be some state government people that don't agree with that, but I think as a real teacher, that's what you need to do.
I agree completely. Well, Miss Curdy, that's fabulous. And we are so grateful that you are spending your afternoon, late afternoon, evening with us, and just appreciate your time. She's super, super busy, and you do a lot. And so we are so grateful that you're sharing this time and just really support everything you're doing. I think you're doing amazing work in a very needed area that no one else that I know of is doing, which is why I wanted to have a brief visit with you. So your work is
so where are you
needed.
located? Where are you located in Oklahoma?
So like we're southeastern Oklahoma, which has actually historically been one of the more impoverished areas of the country, and are just now starting to get connectivity throughout the state. But we're about 70 miles north of Dallas, and about 20 miles into Oklahoma. So.
Okay. I mean, like I told you, we drive through there at least twice a year. So maybe one of these days we'll figure out how to stop in.
We would love that. You're welcome to. I am teaching one fully online class, but we could probably do a meetup, and would love to have you come in. So totally appreciate it. And if there's anything we can do for you, I can do for you in turn, please let me know.
All righty. Well, thank you. And I will post up some links and stuff for you guys by tomorrow morning to the Hangout page. And hopefully those will be useful resources.
I'm sure they will. I'm sure they will. And please, let's try to figure out a time for you all to stop in on your route to Carolina.
I always tell people, if you've ever seen National Lampoon's Summer Vacation, it's sort of like that.
Awesome. It's great.
All right. You guys have a good evening.
You too. Thank you so much. It was excellent. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.